Coast, Berbice, New Amsterdam, and of course right here on the Quarantine Coast. Good evening, and of course good evening to those who are following this program on Facebook throughout Guyana and of course in North America and elsewhere. Once again, welcome to another edition of Issues in the News, where we discuss the important events that would have taken place in our country over the last week or so. And as I would normally say, we live in a very dynamic society, and a lot of things take place in any given week in this country which are worthy of our discussions. I want to begin this program by recognizing and acknowledging the Guyana Bar Association and the local organization RISE for the position that they have taken on the impending appointment of a Chancellor of the Judiciary and the Chief Justice of our country. As you know, it is widely speculated that the President will violate the Constitution and will proceed to appoint these two important office holders in a manner that is not compliant with the Constitution. Persons have widely come to this conclusion because of the President's track record, and the organization RISE as well as the Guyana Bar Association have both issued very clear and unambiguous statements indicating that any attempt by the President to act contrary to and in violation of the Constitution in terms of making these appointments will be challenged in the courts. So finally, we are, when I say we, I mean we in the People's Progressive Party, because for a long while we have been the lone voice out there championing these causes. But finally and eventually we are getting the support and we are getting the voices of civil society organizations that are very important in this country. We are now finally seeing them coming out from wherever they were while these excesses were taking place since 2015. So the Bar Association has issued a very stinging statement against any intending appointment or any appointment that intends to violate the Constitution. The Bar Association says that it will be null and void, and if one is to read through the statements, one gets the clear impression that the Bar Association will join in filing legal proceedings to challenge any unconstitutionality. Of course, late last night, the President, through Minister Harman, issued a response, and the response is quite amusing. Mr. Harman expresses deep shock, and he's very perplexed as to why the Guyana Bar Association would issue such a statement, because according to Harman, the President is very clear and has indicated that he does not intend to violate the Constitution. As a result, the Minister of State, my dear friend Mr. Harman, questions the Bar Association's motive because he's apparently confused. According to him, the President has said that he will not violate the Constitution, yet the Bar Association has proceeded to make the statement. Well, Mr. Joseph Harman, the reason why the Bar Association has made that statement, the reason why the civic society organization RISE has made that statement, the reason why the PPP has made statements to the same effect is because we do not believe the President. The President has no credibility when it comes to constitutional matters in the eyes of the people of this country, because he has repeatedly and barefacedly violated the Constitution of Guyana on numerous occasions. He did not act on recommendations for the appointment of judges that would have come from the Judicial Service Commission. Though he is mandated to act upon them with speed, he took his own time and made appointments to the judiciary 1 year and more after those recommendations were made. He unilaterally appointed a person to act as chairman of GCOM. You, Mr. Harman, the president instructed you to write to the Police Service Commission, giving them directions not to promote police officers in violation of the Constitution. The President and you, Mr. Harman, called Mr. Carville Duncan, the head of the Public Service Commission, an office holder that is highly protected by the Constitution, and you ask him to resign, and you have hounded him out of office by instituting concocted and fabricated criminal charges against him. So against that backdrop, how can anyone take the president seriously when he says that he will not violate the Constitution? Hence, Mr. Harman, please understand, if you don't, that is the reason why the Bar Association has issued the statement that they have issued, and they are perfectly in order to do so. The other issue that I want to deal with at some length is the ExxonMobil contract. Now, viewers and friends, you will note that I have been quite silent on this matter for a while, but I've decided that I will now begin my input in the discussions that are ongoing. Now, where do you begin? Because there are so many things to say about this contract. A safe place to begin is to recognize that this is one of the most lopsided, the most one-sided, the most disadvantageous contracts ever drafted, perhaps over the last 50 years in the world. I challenge anyone to bring a more lopsided contract of this type and do a comparison. You will not find any. Everything almost about this contract is wrong. I want to say very clearly that I cannot blame ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil is an international company. They have come here to do business, and their concern is to maximize their profits. They are not Guyanese. They don't care, and they don't have to care about Guyana. They don't have to care about Guyanese. Their paramount consideration is to maximize profits. So they have negotiated a contract with their objectives in mind. The role of the government of Guyana, who smartly excluded the opposition from all negotiations and went themselves in the form of Mr. Raphael Trotman, their duty, their obligation, their responsibility to us, the people of Guyana, is to ensure that we, the people of Guyana, and Guyana as a country, also gets a contract that is fair. So that while ExxonMobil gets a contract that maximizes their profits at its fullest, and that is their objective at the negotiation table, the concern and the responsibility of the government at the same time was to negotiate a contract that will best protect the welfare of Guyana, that would yield to us as Guyanese the highest possible incentives and rewards in the form of commissions, payments of taxes, and all the other things which go with a contract of this type. what we ended up getting is the worst end of a contract that any country can possibly get. That is what we ended up getting. But why should anyone be surprised? In every single area of governmental activities, we have seen a remarkable, incomparable, and unprecedented level of incompetence. You choose the area and let us examine it. Is it in the mining sector? Vast ignorance, vast incompetence. At the level of the Attorney General chambers, massive incompetence. In the agricultural sector, all the industries are either closing down or they are perishing. Again, remarkable evidence of incompetence. In terms of managing the economy itself, we are declining as an economy. No investment, joblessness, no growth. Taxes are increasing, spending power decreasing, interest rates are increasing, loans can be paid. So on a macro level, again, at the economic and financial level of the country, you find unprecedented and incomparable incompetence. At the diplomatic level, it is the same thing. Imagine in 2015, when we left government, our relations with Venezuela. In 2015, when the PPP left government, our relations with Venezuela were such that we had a good office engagement that was moving amicably and smoothly towards a resolution of our border controversy. That is where we left the border issue. We were at the United Nations sponsored good officer mechanism, at which mechanism we were facilitating an amicable resolution of the border issue. That's when we departed from office in 2015. Our relations with Venezuela at the economic and trade level was such that they were our largest purchaser of rice. And they were paying us 1.5 times what the world market price was paying us for rice. They also had an aircraft that used to come here once a week, bringing approximately 1,000 Venezuelans, once, about 2 or 3 times per week, bringing about 1,000 Venezuelans here to shop. That was the level of our relations and international trade with Venezuela. So at the border, we were pursuing an amicable resolution inspired by a process commenced by the United Nations. And our trading level, Venezuela was one of our best trading partners. In 3 years' time, or less than 3 years, we are virtually at war with Venezuela. We are virtually at war with Venezuela, with the president himself recognizing that and going to the border villages now to set up bases. We have no trading relations with Venezuela. They have terminated the Petrocaribe arrangement. They have stopped buying rice. They have pulled out their aircraft from Guyana. So from excellent trading relations, we are at the brink of a war where in the international arena there is an article circulating stating that Venezuela intends to invade our country. That is the level to which we have descended in 3 years at the diplomatic level with Venezuela. I say that to you to demonstrate to you the level of incompetence in this government, whichever area you wish to examine. So I now come back to the agreement with ExxonMobil. Mr. Raphael Trotman apparently decides, and the government behind him decides, that he and he alone will go to negotiate this contract. In fact, they have negotiated nothing. What they did was to take contracts which the PPP had, that the PPP had with oil companies at a time when we did not have any conclusive evidence that we had oil in any commercial quantity, when our border relations with Suriname were very unsettled, and we were giving exploratory contracts for people to come to explore to see whether we have oil in any feasible commercial quantity. Those are the very contracts that these idiots have used, and I really beg your pardon for using that word. This is the contract that they have used to sign with ExxonMobil, when they know in 2016, the time when they signed the contract, that we have billions of barrels of oil already there, and we have no border controversy with Suriname. How in God's name can you be so stupid to think that they are the same thing? As a result of the public criticisms to which the government is subject, their answer is to release what we signed, what the PPP signed, as a defense. Their answer to all the criticisms is to release a couple of contracts that the PPP signed to show that the PPP signed the same thing. Yes, we signed the same thing under radically different circumstances. Imagine if you have a piece of land that has gold in huge quantities at the bottom in the earth, and you have an empty house lot at the side. So you have one house lot that got hundreds of pounds of gold, and you have another house lot next to it that has no gold. Or at least you don't have any evidence that there is gold. You sell the house lot without gold for $100. And then you find gold. You discover that this land, the next land that you have, has thousands of pounds of gold. And you sell it for the same $100. You sell it for the same $100. Are you not mad? That is the level of incompetence that surrounds this contract from the signing stage. This government did not retain a singular person qualified in the area of oil and gas contracts to advise them. They have advisors which they hired after they signed the contract. So after the damage was done, they hired Mr. Mangal or Dr. Mangal, and the man made one critical statement about them, and they dismissed him. They hire a gentleman from Trinidad who comes here occasionally. But why do you hire now? The contract is already signed. Mr. Trotman would have never seen a contract of that complexity in his life. And I am a lawyer, and I know what I'm saying. He would have never seen a contract of that type in his life. What inspired him? What persuaded him to believe that he is competent to go and negotiate a contract? As I said, they didn't even negotiate any contract. They took the standard form that we had and they signed it, though the circumstances were radically different. And then they are foolish enough to make that public and use that as a defense for their inexcusable incompetence. So that is the signing part. Let us go to the signing bonus. Right next door, Brazil, ExxonMobil signed a contract with Brazil only 2 years ago, where Brazil received $760 million as their signing bonus. Listen to me carefully. $760 million. We received 18 million. There was a professor who was here who said, from a Guyanese professor from America, who was quoted in the newspapers as saying that a minimum signing bonus that we should have received, having regard to the quantity of oil that is there and all the other circumstances, was $1 billion US dollars. We accepted 18 million. And before the operation has even commenced in a railway out there, we already have a bill of 460 million US dollars, which we have to pay to ExxonMobil for the exploratory expenses they have incurred. Can you imagine that? We haven't gotten a cent of royalty yet, which when they start to produce, we will get at the lowest possible rate in all petroleum agreements in the world. No petroleum agreement in the world pays a royalty of 2%. That is what we negotiated, 2%. And we have to receive a cent of that 2%, but we already have a bill that ExxonMobil sends to us for the exploratory expenses. Imagine we agree to pay for that for the people. So we owe them $460 million. So those are some opening observations which I want to make before I go into the contract itself. Number one, this contract prevents any servant and or agent of Guyana from going anywhere close to the mining operations unless we serve them 6 months notice in advance. So there is no way we can monitor how much oil these people are actually pulling out. We can't be there to monitor it. We can only go there if we want to go there in June. In January, we have to give them a notice that we are coming there in June. Do you know the damage and destruction and the amount of oil that can be pulled out from January to June? This contract doesn't allow us to have any presence out there to examine or to scrutinize how much oil is being taken out. So how do we know what the 2% we are going to get? It's 2% of what? It's got to be 2% of the quantity. But we don't know, and we don't have any idea of monitoring the production because we cannot be there. We have to give the people 6 months notice. Let me break it down to you. Imagine you have a gold, a block, a mining block, and you have an agreement, you own a mining block, and you're giving somebody to work, and you are to get X% of the gold that they make. But you can never go to see how the operations, how much gold is being produced. You have to give 6 months notice before you go there. So if the man tells you that he produces 2 ounces, but he produces 200 ounces, then you can't know, because you can't be there. Or take another example. You have a rice field and you rent it out, and your rent is 5 bags per acre. But you can't visit the rice field to see how much bags of paddy being cut. You can't go. So if the man says he cut 10 bags, that is it. You are to get a percentage of the rice cut. But you can't go to count how much. So that is the kind of arrangement that we have. Secondly, this contract exempts this company from paying any tax, and a list, a whole host of taxes, for the next 40 years. This is a contract. This contract excludes this company from paying any income tax on any oil operations, any property tax from any property they may own, any value-added tax on any oil-related activities, any excise tax, customs duties on anything that they import in this country. And if the government wants to pass any new tax in the next 40 years, it will not apply to the operations of these companies. Not only ExxonMobil, but any related company. Can you imagine? Have you ever heard about anything like that? Anywhere in the world? And it is even more fundamental than that. Taxes are imposed by law. Every tax that is imposed by the state has to be imposed by a law passed by the parliament, not the government. Government don't pass laws. Parliament passes laws. Taxes are passed by law. You pay VAT because there is a law that says that you pay VAT. You pay income tax because a law says that you must pay income tax. You pay excise tax because a law says you pay excise tax. This contract, this government by this contract is essentially saying to ExxonMobil that the laws of the country do not apply to you. And they are doing that by a contract. As I said, Parliament passes laws. We live in a country where you have separation of powers. There is the government, there is the judiciary, there is the Parliament. These three things must not intermix in their discharge of their functional responsibilities. When Parliament passes a law, government, by contract, can't stop the law of the land from operating. Any first-year law student will tell you that any contract that conflicts with a law, the contract is illegal. Here you have a contract that suspends a number of laws in this country as it relates to these companies. Only a law can suspend a law. Only a law can repeal a law. Only a law can say that a law does not apply. Here you have a contract saying all these things. A contract is saying that this company, The laws of Guyana do not apply to it. Utter madness. Utter madness. And those are only some. Those are only some of the clauses in this contract. And the president says to the nation, we will not renegotiate it. We will not renegotiate it. The worst contract ever. And the government, the population is up in arms. This is not, the oil that is out there is not owned by APNU. It's not owned by those in government. It is owned by every single Guyanese. And these people have taken our property and given it away. They have taken our property and they have given it away in the most incompetent and insensitive manner. And when we speak out about our own property being taken away from us and given away, and we ask the government go back to the negotiating table, the government says no. Isn't this government therefore acting under some other influence? Is Mr. Raphael Trotman so incompetent that he can negotiate a contract of such disastrous magnitude that even someone who is retarded would not do? Is Mr. Trotman at that level? Is this government so much on the side of ExxonMobil because it likes ExxonMobil and it hates Guyanese and Guyana? No. My only inference is that massive corruption is involved in this contract. Massive corruption. And that is the only reason, only sensible, logical reason why. If not, then we have a government that should be no part of Guyana because it doesn't represent our people's interest. This contract is the most important contract that Guyana has entered into since independence. There is no other contract that even comes close in terms of importance, in terms of implications for the people of Guyana and the future of Guyana than this contract. And this is how a government of Guyana made up of Guyanese would negotiate. This is what they negotiate for their own people, for their own fellow Guyanese. This is the contract that ought to move us from the years of poverty and suffering that we have been enduring. This is the contract. This is the singular opportunity. Opportunities like this do not come a second time. And this is the behavior of this government. This is a one-off chance. And this is how they have squandered it. And they're telling us to our face that we can't do anything about it. My information is, I don't know how accurate it is, that oil is being produced and removed from out there. But there is no monitoring. That is being done as we speak, as I speak. But we don't have a presence there. We don't know. The thing is over 100 miles from our shoreline. So it's not out there. It's very far. and we have no access. And the contract prevents us from going. So how do we monitor what is going on? That is the contract that we have negotiated. I want you to internalize what I have said tonight. Think about it. Discuss it with your family and your friends. Because this here is our future. This is our hope. And they are telling us that this is what will bring us salvation. And that is how they are treating this. The most important resource in our country. And this is how the government is treating it. What do you expect? How can this government ever represent our people's interest? What they are doing is almost treasonable. It borders on treason, what they have done with this contract. What they have done with this contract. And they are prepared to tell us that they are not prepared to do anything about it. And we can go to hell no matter what we say. And the sugar workers' children cannot go to school. The sugar workers must live for the rest of their lives on a severance that they are not even getting. I have looked at a video of a sugar worker from East Kanchi, Adelphi. And this man is so tearful, he's so emotional as he outlines the problems that he has as a man to provide for his family. He worked 21 years on the estate. He has his children to feed. He has his home to maintain. The money that he has, they're telling him to go and invest it. Nagamutu say go and invest it. This man is so stupid. Invest it where? $500,000 you give somebody and tell him to go and invest it? Invest it and do what? Plant garden. So you have 17,000 farmers immediately on the horizon in Berbice who will buy the produce. Where they will get the land to farm? And this gentleman, this worker, former worker of Rose Hall Estate, explaining. He says he sits on his veranda and he looks at the number of children, cane cutter children, passing every day in front of his house, and the number is getting smaller and smaller every day. Because less and less people, parents, can afford to send their children to school. And this government is making a mockery of the situation. Out of their blues, they announce that the estates are going to be reopened for some month and a half. These people make the same frivolity and triviality with which they treated the ExxonMobil contract. Such a monumental instrument. It is the same thing that is manifesting itself in almost every endeavor in the government. The sugar industry, the devastation that is taking place in the villages of this country along the sugar belt is the same thing you're seeing. And the government does not care. You will see big sport for Mashramani and Friday. That is what they are interested in. Where I live, whole night, they are practicing fireworks. They are shooting up fireworks in the air. They are rehearsing for some big event that will take place Friday, while people are starving in the sugar belt. Children are going to bed hungry, and they are sporting in Georgetown. That is the government that we have holding office. I believe that I have said enough, and I now go to the phone. The phone has been ringing. So callers, please call. The numbers are on the screen. Let me hear your views. Please keep your calls brief and respectful. You can criticize me, but no offensive and abusive language. Caller, you're on the air.
Good night, sir.
Good night.
Here is back one thing about salvation, which is healthy.
I was quoting the government.
I want that salvation.
Well, that it looks so.
Yeah, look like right what is the salvation. You see these people don't know how to work. If they have dance, you can rock. If Guyana want to make a bridge where at the River, where more? There was a Ghana and a Nigeria and a North America. Where more is it? Is that about it?
All right, caller. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So this caller has some very strong views. Caller, you're on the air. Good evening. Hello.
Hello, good night.
Good night, madam. Speak up. Where are you calling me from? Hampshire. How are you?
Alright.
You want to make a contribution?
Yeah, I'm gonna complete the garbage.
You have a complaint about the garbage.
Yeah, I have a 7 bag in garbage, 7 bag of nothing. Then I have to collect them back.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I want the NDC of the area to hear the pleas of this caller. She is complaining that she has 7 bags of garbage and no one is coming to pick it up. If it is I believe it is the responsibility of the NDC in the area, Hampshire. The lady says she's from Hampshire and there is no garbage collection taking place. Please let us work to rectify that situation. Caller, you're on the air. Good evening. I'm fine, thank you. Could you raise your voice? The viewers need to hear you. No, but he's writing in the record book. If you are 1 minute late, he puts half of an hour late. No, hold on. You are not required to sign below that? No, but have you, but don't you object? And what is his name? Travis Isaacs. And where he works? WIM sub-office as a superintendent. All right, I'm sure that the regional chairman is watching this program. Mr. Armagan, there is an officer of the sub-region office at WIM. His name is Travis Isaacs. The complaint is that he records inaccurate time when workers show up for duty. He deliberately puts them much later than they actually arrive. So please look into that situation. Trevor Isaacs is his name. Caller, you're on the air.
Good night, Mr. Man.
Good night, good night.
I want to ask a question. What the shipping industry making a profit on their government? And if you have a business that can be profitable,
Yeah, thank you, caller. Very good point. The caller wants to know whether the sugar industry was making a profit. Well, caller, let me tell you something. The sugar industry over the last 3 or 4 years was not making a profit. But in a country, because of the size of a particular industry, especially if that industry is owned by the state doesn't run a business necessarily to make a profit in terms of dollar and cents. You can't measure state activities like that. The American administration bailed out hundreds of companies when they fell under in 2008. They were not making profits. Caterpillar, for example, President Obama pumped millions of US dollars into Caterpillar. You know why? Because Caterpillar alone employed nearly 300,000 Americans. So a country, at the level of a country, it's not about dollar and cents. It's not, you don't measure profit like that. You look at the number of jobs created, you look at the societal value of the industry, you look at a whole host of other things. The bauxite industry did not make profit for 20 years. But we never closed it as a government. We never closed it because it would have jeopardized 10,000 families in Linden and Kakwani. So, caller, it's a good question that you have asked, and it allows me to explain that these things are not written in dollar and cents. And I've written many articles explaining that concept. Caller, you're on the air. Could you speak up, please? Yes, I want the viewers to hear you. Well, at some point in time we'll be getting there, because if you don't believe what I am saying, just pick up any edition of the Kaijur News. Alright? Yes. But that is what has happened. But I am glad that you're thinking in that direction, because very soon we will have mass protests in Berbice. The people are calling for that. When you walk among the people in the sugar belt, they need an answer to their problems, and none is forthcoming. They're not even getting their severance. And as I said on previous programs, the method of calculation of this severance benefits and pay are not disclosed to the people, so they don't know that the sum of money that they are getting is an accurate reflection of their legal entitlement. Caller, you are on the air.
Good night, sir.
Good night. Thank you for calling. 52, 66 cattle pasture, yes. They were shared out as what? And that creates a problem with cattle. So there is nowhere for you to graze cattle. Alright, that is always a problem. Thank you very much, caller. And that is where experience and wisdom in government comes in. You always have to balance. There is always a competing interest between cattle farmers and cash crop and rice farmers. For years, we had that problem in Blackbush Polder, until we were able to develop a huge expanse of land way down in the back. So this government, I don't know. Caller, you're on the air.
Good night, sir.
Good night. You have a problem with the overseer at Port Morant? Sir, I'm not hearing you clearly at all. Who? The overseer?
Yes.
Is being bullied by the vendors?
Yes, that we can get to farm. We get a cash farm, we're trying to farm for our vehicles, and these people just come out more and more on the road and bury. There's no one to stop these people from putting up a
It's a problem that I am aware of. Thank you very much, caller. This is another call complaining about the continuous expansion of the Port Morant market, that it is coming on the road now and no one seems to be able to control the situation. So the hire car drivers are complaining. So I'm calling on those who are responsible for the Port Morant market, the NDC and possibly the region, to please monitor what is going on with the allegation that the market is being continuously expanded. Caller, you're on the air.
Good night, gentlemen.
Good night.
To be honestly speaking truth, let me tell you something. You're having a good program. You got to understand one thing. This election that's going on in Guyana, these people in Guyana, you all old PPP people come on yourself. You know what? Let me tell you for example. You see those campus, you see Jack Brown, you see those kind of people? Those kind of people who need to deal with election.
All right, caller, we have passed that. We are in a new, we are now different, and we are moving in a different direction.
No, but
I don't want to have discussion with people's names.
you don't have to have discussion with that, but you have to move away from that. You have to move away from that.
All right, caller, thank you. Now, please, when you call, please ensure that the volumes of your television sets are down. And as I await more calls, I want to remind you that the ongoing registration exercise is still on, and I want you to appeal to you to take advantage of the few days that are left. Ensure that all the those of you who are 14 years, who are now going into 14 years, that you go and you get yourselves registered. Please, parents, I am appealing to you, get your children registered. Those of you who need your names to be changed or corrected in some form or fashion, please get that done. Those of you who need transfers to be effected because you have moved, please ensure that you get those transactions done. The offices of GCOM, the offices of GCOM are well publicized, and one should be located in your area. Caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, Mr. Lamelo.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Where are you calling me from? Sorry? I'm not hearing you. I know that, that's why I'm not tolerating that kind of argument. We have gone past that. I know that. So we are about the future. We are about getting things rectified for the future. Whatever caused that to happen, we have to change it, and we have to deal now with what will take place in the future. Caller, you're on the air. Caller, you're on the air. We lost that caller. Caller, you're on the air. Hi, could you speak up a little, please? Thank you, caller. When you get through to the program, make sure that you speak loudly and clearly. I want the viewers to hear your contribution as well. Caller, you're on the air.
Good night, sir.
Good. You're calling from Fire Ridge, yes.
I'd like to know and clarify why you are closed Bormine.
Why we close Bormine?
Yeah, we'd like to know that.
Thank you. I don't think that we closed Bormine. I think Bormine was closed by the PNC. But the bauxite operation on the whole was being reduced and minimized. and part of it had to go. But what we ensured occurred that we kept the bulk of the operation. In fact, Bormine operation, I believe, was merged into Kakwani. Collier, Bormine in any event is an amalgamation, sorry caller, of Aichuni and Kakwani, and they were merged into one, if I remember correctly. Caller, you're in the air.
But I'm sorry, I did a very good job.
Thank you very much.
I'd like you to know that in the fight,
Yes.
there is nobody around going around to 76 or 77 years. So it's very urgent for you to see about it.
Cotton Tree area.
Yes, sir.
But we have all right, thank you. So we will take one final call. Caller, you're on the air. Caller, you're on the air. Before I close, let me again make an appeal to every one of you who need a transaction to be done in relation to your name or particulars. Please, the process is ongoing. There is a GCOM registration center or office in your neighborhood. If you are 14 now or you were never on the list, please ensure you go and put your name on the list. If you are 14 and over, you can now go on the list. If you are 18 and above and were never registered, please ensure that you are registered. It is unbelievable, but we are still discovering people who have never been registered and they are way over 18 years. All name changes or corrections to names, please ensure that those transactions are concluded. All transfers, if you had moved, etc., an election, you had to travel to go and vote. We don't want that to happen again. Please transfer to the place where you are now currently living so that you will vote in the area in which you reside. This is where I have to say goodbye. We have come to the end of the program. I think that we have had a very good discussion. We discussed several important issues. Good night, take care, and until I see you next Tuesday, have a great week. Thank you.